What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jaci Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandRUSSO.com.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. See,
Another
you're already
podcast.
making the face like I said it wrong. That was just a normal hello.
I never know what you're going to say. So we can,
But I like to keep you on your toes.
I appreciate that.
Okay, it's the least I can do. So to those of you who are joining us, welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is one of those, I think, guests that make it really interesting because she's been agency side, client side. She's done big financial institutions and helps her husband with his small startup. And so I think that's a great way to think about how marketing has to shape shift based on who it's trying to reach. But at the end of the day, it stays rooted in those fundamental practices.
Yeah, I think it was a good conversation. And I love towards the end, we started talking about processes. And it reminded me a lot about ours and how it came to be. I remember, early on in our careers, we were both big fans of the Richards Group out of Dallas. And they had their branding process really outlined on their website. It was very awesome. And anyway, we're like, we kind of want that for what we're doing because traditional advertising was a grind. We were just chasing after things and it was never really fulfilling, both professionally and I think for our clients and the results. And before, the word brand became so synonymous with everything, I'm personal brand. This is my brand. And I think it's way overused, but the true meaning of it, I think, the development of our process, and she's talking about hers and how it's, it's very different, but it shows that there's a framework in getting to the bottom of something and then finding out the right solution. Just guessing on it on gut sometimes works and a lot of times doesn't,
No. And so stick around, listen to our conversation with Danielle Dobbs, and hopefully you'll learn some things about how your process can help you build a brand.
So that was quick. You got somewhere to go?
No, I was trying to be efficient.
All right. So we chat for a little bit. I haven't seen each other all day.
I'm worried sometimes our chats get too long. So I try to be, conscious of being efficient with people's time.
I appreciate
I want to
that.
get it in and out in under an hour.
We got 5 minutes.
Okay. Do you want to talk some more? What do you want to chat about? What's for dinner?
I'm busy. I don't know.
I'm trying to be sensitive to the fact that it's Monday and you have a very full schedule and you're saying, no, let's talk more. That is so unlike you. You miss me?
No, I'm ready to go now.
Oh,
Well, you've crossed the line now. Now you're getting.
I was giving you a chance to be nice and you've missed the boat.
I was being nice, but now you're like pressing back on it.
Oh, I'm responding with nice and that's too much.
Way too much.
When the day is through.
Danielle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and excited.
I'm excited to have you here. I think we should start with your disclaimer statement because I want to make sure that everything from this point forward doesn't get you or me in trouble.
Exactly. Sounds great. So the thoughts, opinions, and views expressed here are solely my own and do not reflect the views, positions, or policies of any company, organization, or employer I have worked with, past or present. Any statements made are based on my personal perspective and should not be interpreted as representing any affiliated entity.
That was lovely. For every person who has a compliance department, a legal department, an HR department, or just a department of overseers, they will feel your pain of the past 30 seconds and appreciate that this is what we have to do sometimes. And I feel like it's escalated because of social media and podcasts. So maybe we start with a little bit about your background, kind of who you are and the kind of work you're doing. And then I want to dive into the challenges of being creative and building a brand in a time when we have to worry about legalese and logistics.
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Danielle Dobbs. I am a first vice president of marketing. I work in the financial industry. I've worked with fundraising. I've done development and grassroots fundraising, marketing, and I've worked from an agency side. And now I work in a corporate setting where I work with an agency or freelancers or many subcontractors to be able to get some marketing done. So that's a little bit about my background. I focus more on service industries. My major was entrepreneurship and my minor was hospitality. So I love serving and the idea of serving others through what you do and your talents and your gifts. And so I really focus on marketing specific to businesses with the love for serving others. So they're very service-oriented businesses.
And I love that because I think you have a couple of things that are going to make you a really great guest today. The in-house and agency side, because we all know those are two very different sides of the coin. And I think those two different perspectives really are interesting on how they work together. And then the work that you've done both at companies small and large and across multiple industries. So talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing in the marketing space right now. What's working?
What is working? Clarity, always clarity. And when I think about what's working in any industry, it is really watching the behavior that your audience is taking. It's being quick, video, photos, whatever content you're using, it all comes down to what's going to catch people's attention. So what's working lately, when I think about some recent posts that we just did with my husband's business, which is in the flight industry, aviation industry, it's really pushing short 5-second ads out that people understand easily so we can just get them through the pipeline, right? Those marketing automations, get them quickest to the person who can talk to them about the sale and them signing up. So that's what's been working lately, is just really focusing on the clarity and the shortness of that message to get them within the full client journey.
Michael, you look like you had a thought about that.
No, absolutely. I agree completely. Those things are going on. My concern with a lot of that is, how do you maintain, because that sounds like you're like, when you're not you, the entire world right now is kind of in that mode of short and quick. And it sounds like it's a transactional play versus a long-term brand build, and how do you keep the branding in there when you are literally getting it down? I say dumbing down, I don't mean that, but you're getting it down to at least common denominator, which is what we always strive for, right? You always want to get to the point of something. But, and I'm not saying yours do this, I'm just saying in general, like when we get down to those small messages, are we losing something in the process of the emotional tie-in? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah. To me, there's got to be a really good balance between a lot of the top funnel educational pieces that you need to educate your client with. And depending on the industry and depending on the client, you really have to understand the different touch points that your clients are going to go through. And so that's just where we're focusing right now. But we have been focusing on the story that we tell the clients on the website when they're there, when they're doing that initial research, when they're going to the Instagram and they're looking at all of the full grid, and they're looking at the type of content that you're posting and the consistency there. And so speaking specifically with my husband's business, that's what we've really been focused on, is what's the full story and the message, where are we differentiating ourselves? And now we're really looking at that A/B testing of which ad is working better. Where is the money getting the best ROI as far as clicks or engagement? Where are the actual sales coming from? And we're asking clients when they're calling, like, hey, where did you hear about us from? Is it a word of mouth, or is it through, Google or initial research, or did you see us on Instagram? So, yes, it's not just the short stuff, but we've been working on the long stuff to build it.
Yeah, and I didn't imply that was your case, just in general, like as a theme, because that seems to be the quick fix for a lot of people. How do I, my entire outreach is short video, quick, impact, trying to get them to click something and, move into that. And what you talked about is what we talk about a lot here as well, is those touch points, like you have to have a full gamut of that. It can't just be one thing. And if you're putting all your eggs in that basket and hoping for return, you may get some immediate things, but you're not going to build that longevity of loyal clients, that really gets you,
Yeah, and that was a question we had actually talked prior before jumping on the podcast, right? It was all about how do you balance wanting quick wins versus wanting to build that brand? And my response was going to be being patient. You got to know when you're ready to pivot and when you've got to change out strategy with the numbers and looking at the numbers versus being patient and seeing how the brand builds over time. I think it's a yes and. You've got to do both, but you've got to do both.
And everybody's patient, so that's a win, right?
No, that's the hardest part. I can remember when we started the business with the flight school, it was like, all right, how do we get wins tomorrow? Because you're looking like, I've got to make sales in order to make money, right? And it's been going on 2 years, and now we're getting those consistent leads. But it's taken that long. It's taken word of mouth. It's taken where's our time spent in order to spend on marketing versus sales versus HR, all those things. But yeah, quick wins can happen, but they're done particular ways in the beginning, and they're supposed to build over time.
So going back to, it's been 2 years now, we'll just do the flight school first as kind of a first focus. So at what point do you start to say, okay, we're 2 years in, we need to do a brand audit. We need to update our brand strategy. We need to really get a sense of what's working for us and do more of that. And what we thought was going to be a great idea, and it has not served us well.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're constantly doing the reviews. I don't think it's just like at what point do we do it? It's a constant, did this ad work? Did this not ad work? Let's try this. Let's try this. You can get really overwhelmed by doing too many things, especially marketers. Like we're the worst, like people that are like, ooh, that looks interesting. Let's try it.
Shiny thing.
Shiny objects are so appealable to us because we love the creative aspect or ideas. We just get so many and we want to do them all, but we can't. And so we're trying to keep it small but mighty. So every single thing that we're doing, like, how does this work? And if it's not working, is it a matter of something we need to tweak or trying something else?
Right.
So it's probably, I would say, monthly reviewing those numbers and how many leads that we've gotten in. Do we need to change this call to action versus this call to action?
Right. Which things specifically, whether it's strategic or, because I'm thinking about some early strategy moves that can be so beneficial before you ever get to tactics, or specifically tactical choices. What do you feel like has been kind of a silver bullet or really worked well for you? And what has not? What's kind of let you down and surprised you because it didn't work?
Oh, what direction do you want me to go here?
You pick it. It's a wide open question, so you can take it in the direction that moves your heart.
Yes. Well, I'd first say it depends on the industry.
Sure.
Looking at the financial services versus the aviation industry versus even some of the retail industries that I served, at the agency, it really depends on what you're trying to do. When you're doing, I will say what fails is when you make the message too broad. So even giving a client or a customer or prospect 3 options, that's too much when you're doing a message or an advertising sale. Right. And so I've seen trying to do too much because you're wanting to say, oh, we sell this, or we have this, or we have this, or we have this. And it's like, no, you've really got to divide this into audience segments, and you've really got to get really tactical about what that ad says. And so where I've seen it fail is doing too many messages or not clear enough. Those two are the two things I've seen really fail. And what's succeeded is another example, just again from Dobbs Flight Services, $99 for a discovery flight. It's straightforward. You have the price. And it's a way to first initiate, do I want to be a pilot? What's it like to fly a plane? what's my first instruction class going to look like? It's kind of a test taster there. So that's been really successful because we know competitively what others do discovery flights in the market. We know that it's a swallowable price tag for somebody who's just trying to dip their toes into it. And we know it's very clear. That message is very clear. It's a discovery flight. You jump on a plane and it's discovering what it would be like to be a pilot. So.
Do you find that you were benefited by conversations that you had to say, like the competitor research that you did, or the customer conversations to say 99 is a sweet spot, not 109, not 119, not 89, 99 is the magic? Did you test things? Did you look at what everybody else was doing to kind of compare? What was your process for that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, today, information out there, it's rampant, right? You can go to your customer or your competitor's website and you can see what they're doing as far as price tag goes. Right. And yes, we definitely did some competitor research in the beginning, trying to see what the prices were out there, what those included, right? Because it's all about the experience. And I mean, if there's a $200 price tag, but their experience is way better, then you're gonna look at, okay, what's our experience look like?
Right, because it's value. It's not just price; it's value.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, what do I get for that value? And
right.
And on my end, going back to the service oriented, so in our industry of financing and my husband's, that's what they have in common. It's all about the quality of that service. So when you're trying to sell that premium price tag, it's really important. Back to Mike. Is it Mike or Michael?
Either one's fine.
Mike, okay. Mike's point in the beginning of being able to paint that emotion towards that story. So it's not just a sign up for the $99. Hopefully they've gone and looked at the reviews and why people love it and all of the nitty gritty things that are going to make somebody say, you know what, they look like a flight school I'd really want to sign on with, or they look like a bank I want to trust with my money, right? That story there. They feel like they're involved in my community, or that business really supports, what I'm invested in.
Right.
I think you have to, I'm sorry, Jackie, but you have to know those channels, because, a lot of times you want to force everything in the kitchen sink into that 3-second, Google ad, or something. And, I need to talk about this, and this. No, you don't. Like, sometimes it is that one thing. What is that one thing that's going to trigger their response, and then give them the opportunity where you're going to read more at. It's not always in a landing page of a website. You don't want to put your entire story of where you came from, where you were founded. No one cares. They want to know what they're there for and where they're going, right? Now, if they want to learn more, where do you put that? Where do they find that? So it's not that it's not important, but just where is it being utilized as part of your messaging system,
Yeah. And that's a great point. That's something I had to learn over time, because you want to make all of those points in one post. But to your point, when you break down that content, I mean, they always say content is king, right? That's what they say. You've probably heard that cliche. So when you say or content is king, then you need more content. And we as marketers get so excited about pushing out the content we've created. Sometimes we do ourselves an injustice by posting all of it at once instead of breaking it down. When in the reality, a consumer is going to say, I only wanted that one statistic you gave. Give me the other statistic next week. And then you're building that rapport with them. So we sell ourselves out really fast instead of really breaking down the content when everybody else's attention span is 9 seconds, or less than a goldfish. So
absolutely.
Yeah, and what is the life cycle of those campaigns and those messaging points? Like, you may put something out there, and the algorithm may only see it, if they ever see it, a blink of an eye, and so, okay, that's gone. So do I reinvent the wheel the next cycle, or do I find a way to repurpose some of that so we're consistent in our messaging over and over again, so people are connecting with it over time? I mean, I think we've because of social media and because of the demands of it and the ease of it, in a way. I mean, it's hard, but it's an easy to jump on, and hey, I can do this and I can put it out there. But now it's like, okay, I need to come up with something new every 5 seconds. And a lot of times I think you do yourself an injustice too, because you don't have time to know what works or doesn't work. And you're already moving on to the next thing, but the pressure of the world forces us to do that in a lot of ways, I think.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was thinking about that today. And, it's funny because when I was at the agency, I would work with more of the traditional. We would do radio partnerships, and I've done TV partnerships with several different industries. And when you're looking at it and you're having these negotiations, if you're not careful and you don't know how to ask about frequency, sometimes you get wrapped up more into the numbers of, oh, wow, the number of impressions I got is awesome. Well, if the consumer only saw it one time, you did not get in front of that consumer enough times for them to remember you. And a lot of people, if you're not in marketing, that's just not something you're really honed in on. And so for the average business owner, that's what I would explain to my husband. Like when we were setting up social ads for awareness, I would want to say, okay, well, what's the frequency? How many times are they going to see that a day or a week? Because they need to be seeing that ad for it to be worth it. Otherwise, you're wasting all that money. Who cares if 5,000 people saw it? They only may have seen it once. So that's something I really actually hone in on when I'm looking at analytics or when I'm looking at media negotiations, is the number of the frequency, reach divided by impressions. Yeah.
No, it's interesting because when I first went to media buying school way back in the 1900s, we were taught that. And it was a big emphasis was at that time when traditional was king, the goal was reach. And then obviously, as soon as digital and social took off, it was like, that can no longer be the goal. Frequency has to be the goal now. And the stat then was somebody needed to see it 7 times in 21 days to make an impression. You can almost flip that now. It's almost like they have to see it 21 times in 7 days for it to land. And it's got to be a message that's going to cut through the clutter and resonate. Otherwise, they can see it a bunch of times. And if it's not applicable to them, they're not going to notice it.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't quote me on this, but I heard somewhere it was like we get served 3,000 ads a day. So you think about the fatigue that we have.
It's 8,000 right now.
Is it? Oh, okay.
8.
So we have got an updated number. Wow.
8.
Oh my God.
Per Google, it is 8,000 ads a day, the average person. Now that's all in. That's, driving to work, billboards, your commute, emails, socials. I mean, that's everything.
Wow.
And so guess how many we block a day? 8,000 ads.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just think about the amount of fatigue we have in making decisions because we're trying to process that information every single time. Do I want to follow up on that?
Right.
I was just talking to somebody last week about this because that's why we're not able to slow down. Our brains are just constantly trying to make the rapid decisions of, do I want that product? Do I not want that product? Do I file it away or do I push it to the side?
Well,
so
I think we've all turned into car salesmen as marketers in a way, because, it used to be, and Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, but like auto dealers, they would flood the market with ads in the hope that, because you don't buy a car every day. And so you're spending money all year long in that one moment that they need a car, that ad's going to cross their line. So they're notoriously spend the most money in the markets, them in healthcare, whatever. But I think we're doing that now with social media too. We're flooding the market with content, hoping that one moment hits that one moment in a lot of ways. And I don't know if that's always the best policy. Some ways it is, I guess. Some people call it money whipping it. You're just throwing money at the problem versus actually having a more targeted approach to things,
Yeah.
I think you bring up a great point, but I would add to that, humans have really overdeveloped our RAS, our articulator, the filter that lives at the base of our brain, the top of our spine, to block out everything that's not applicable. So when you're, pregnant or just had a baby, you see all the baby ads everywhere, the diapers and the clothes and the cute toys and all the little things. Well, when you're not in that season, you don't see any of that stuff. It's not that humans stopped producing babies or stopped advertising to new parents. It's that it's no longer applicable to you. And so car dealers, I think, and using them as an example, Michael, because you brought them up, they're on the 365-day circle because although you might not be shopping for a red pickup truck right now, somebody is. And in the olden times, it was just, TV, radio, billboards. So there was no way to be targeted in the approach. So they had to just put red pickup truck ads everywhere a potential red pickup truck buyer might be watching TV or listening to the radio. Now we can be so selective and so specific and so targeted with our own databases.
Yeah.
With social, with digital, with all of these tools. And it's shocking to me the amount of targeting potential and the people who still do such a poor job targeting.
Yeah. It's very true.
It's crazy.
Yeah. We have the tools, many tools at our fingertips. I mean, just a number of metrics that you can look at things and reporting. I mean, there's no amount of, there's plenty of information out there. There is so much that we can gather at our fingertips to understand what the data tells us. It's also trying to be able to interpret what story that it does tell us, though. I mean, what do you look for? You can almost get really overwhelmed by the amount of data that is out there as well. So understanding, going back to where strategy you're using in the beginning and understanding your product and your customer is so crucial to being able to filter out, what decisions you need to actually make and what data you're actually looking at.
100%. And so no one person can manage all that. And I always have such empathy for the in-house marketers that I talk to. And you're doing that for multiple entities. So you have multiple empathies.
Thank you.
But so, how do you decide what you're going to do, what you're going to pass on to somebody in your team, what you're going to outsource to a strategic partner or vendor? How do you make those decisions?
Yeah, so I could answer that in many, many ways as well. When I started at the bank, they didn't have a marketing department. And then with my husband's company, it started from scratch, right? So full entrepreneur there too, limited budget. And then when you're talking with these other business owners that I've worked with in the past, whether they're retail industry or a boutique, etc., you're trying to figure out what direction do you give them with a media plan and a media budget? And budget's a big resource of it. But how I would answer your question is, again, it depends, because there's a lot more variables other than just budget. There's also time. Time is so incredibly important. And then the one that is really underestimated, depending on what platforms you want to do, is talent. So I've worked with some business leaders that are top notch. I have been so incredibly blessed to work with them to be top notch on video. And then there are some people I've worked with that are their video is just not their thing. They would rather write a blog all day long about something that they're an expert on and then be able to divide that content and use it in several different places. So to me, those are three of the top things that it comes down to is, all right, let's take a look at your budget. Let's take a look at the time that you've got. And let's take a look at, as far as talent wise or resources go, what makes sense. And that's at least the conversation when I start. So that's where we start the conversation. Then you have to get into, okay, equipment. You've got to talk about, you got to go back to the strategy conversation of who is your audience and where they're at as well. Because that's another big player, or a big variable depending on what industry you're in. And, those are some pretty big pieces to it.
Right.
And I think, a lot of times, audience is key. I mean, internally for us, it always starts with audience. We have to know who we are, who we're talking to. Otherwise, what are we doing? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But I think part of that too is, you mentioned fatigue earlier too. I think the data fatigue that we all deal with every day gets in the way of that a lot. What does the data tell me the customer has versus do I actually, because data will tell me a lot of things. But until I've had a conversation with them, until I've really gotten to know them, until I have jumped in the deep end and said, let me go really figure out what motivates these people, and talking to your sales team, talking to people that deal with the consumers directly and understanding that process and that line. Because if you're just looking at numbers all day, I think you get a good part of the story and more than you ever have, but you're only getting a piece of it. There has to be something else on the back end that really kind of gets you into that headspace.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can do, so we tried different things with the aviation piece. You could do educational videos, and where those are received, do you do them on YouTube or do you do them on TikTok or do you do them as Instagram reels, right? Or do you do some really cool footage of, the Thunderbirds flying by, catching
aspirational.
attention? Yeah, aspirational pieces. Yeah. And again, it comes back to, yes, your audience. What do they want to see? What's going to capture the attention? But we also know that different content pieces have different intents. Are we wanting them to be top funnel just to capture their interest and be able to go to the website and check out more information? Or are we wanting them to go ahead and sign up like a submission form to say, hey, I want to contact somebody. I want to talk to somebody about signing up. So, going back to where's your audience and what do they want to understand, but it goes back to the journey too. What stage of the journey are they in, and where you're going to capture their attention in each of those platforms.
Right.
I think the TikTok discussion is a funny one right now, just because I watch the world as it evolves with TikTok. And I'm actually a fan of TikTok. When it first came out, my kids make fun of me and say, why are you on TikTok? Because it was all dancing videos and lip sync and all that stuff. But there was a niche market in there where I watched golf videos, I watched cooking videos, I watched things that I like to watch. And it was part of I was like, oh, that's a 15-second 30-second little video about something I learned that day. And I can go through a bunch of them. And it was very, educational and rewarding and awesome. Now I'm finding though that businesses are, because it got so popular, they're like, how do I get on TikTok and how do I do that? And so now my feed is being flooded with local and regional things that I don't want to watch. Like that's not part of what I signed up for. I don't want to see another pseudo influencer giving me a food review. Hey guys, come with me as I walk into the burger joint, and watching them eat a burger. I'm like, I'm here. I don't need you to tell me how good it is. I want to go explore for myself. That's just me. But I think there's a rub there with how do you, as always, how do you monetize social media when it's meant as a social platform and putting businesses out there? Yeah, it's a tough deal, Yeah.
I have a question for you on that. So why do you think you watch TikTok more than you watched YouTube Shorts, or do you do both?
To be honest with you, and I have tried both, but I was introduced to it and I just stayed with it. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't watching online videos. I wasn't in that world until because I heard TikTok. So I went on it one day, this was years ago, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can save things, I can categorize. And pretty soon I found my own algorithm and it made sense to me. And then I went to other platforms and I'm like, well, I just like this one because it was familiar.
User experience.
Yeah.
The way you interact with it really does check a lot of boxes on, Michael just talked about saving videos. YouTube Shorts don't work the same way. The way you flip through YouTube Shorts doesn't work the same way. And so it really is that user experience. They make it so easy to just scroll and watch.
Yeah.
And waste time. Which is, I admit.
I wasn't going to say that. I have benefited from the recipes you have learned. So I'm not judging out loud.
I'm going to make sure my husband has a TikTok.
So we're back to tactics though. And I think that's the age old question because we've talked around it, but I'm going to kind of drive us back down the center of this lane.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to go straight to tactic. I'm going to do YouTube Shorts. I'm going to do TikTok. I'm going to do Insta. I'm going to do Pinterest, whatever it might be. And then as the strategist, because that's really my daily role here, my job is to wave the flag and say, wait a minute, is that where the majority of the people you're trying to reach are? You nailed it earlier, Danielle, when you said, it's about the target audience and it's about not being too wide and you've got to be targeted and focused on that audience. Mm-hmm. I say the same thing about the tactic.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you have to, I've had so many conversations around client journey, but you have to understand what the client's going to do. Like when I first start, I say, okay, first off, where you have to know who your audience is, but where are you first going to reach them? And then likely interact with them again. And you have to understand the sales journey too, from the time that they're doing like a discovery call through the time of they officially sign up. And so really understanding what they're looking for, what questions they're asking, what their pain points are, that is part of developing the strategy. And it's also part of developing your story. You know, we don't have a business unless we have a problem that we're solving. We don't have a business unless we have somebody we're helping. So, and that's part of, I've built my own framework called Refine. I think I mentioned that to you too, is I've got a process in my head where first you have to research the client, your business, your competitors, if you don't already know them, right? And then you have to establish those core pieces. You have to understand exactly the uniqueness that you're differentiating yourself in the market with. You have to understand exactly all the different pain points that you're going to be solving for them, and the benefits that they're going to get out of actually signing up and choosing the uniqueness you offer to solve those problems. Or problem, depending on what your company is. So, yeah.
But go through the other letters. So research.
Yeah, research, establish or reestablish if you're a company that's trying to rein everything in. Then there's F for fortify. You fortify the message. You've decided the key strategy. Now you need to fortify your message, fortify your plan. You build the media budget around that. What platforms you're going to be on. So then there's I, which is illustrate. You need to paint the story. From now that you've got your core messaging in place, now you need to paint the story that reflects that core message. And then you have N for numbers. You're building the numbers. You're building the goals that you're going to want to hit, or you review the numbers that you've had from existing advertising efforts. And then E is execute on the new strategy. So, or execute on your media. Everything that you've talked about. But it does take a while to build all of that. It sounds so quick when I share it like that. It is not.
It is not.
No.
So ours is, obviously, I think the best strategists have a process. And so ours is called Razor Branding. And we developed it back in 2005 is when we trademarked it. And so ours has 4 core elements. It starts with focus. Who are we focused on? And then we move into promise. Why should they pick you? How are you different from everybody else? What's your unique differentiator? How do you dominate, in your industry? Why you, not the others? And then we move into connection. And that's what you say to really cut through the clutter and connect with them. Because we just talked about 8,000 ads a day. You got to say something different. If you say it the way everybody else says it, you're just going to blend in. And then the fourth and final is harmony. How do you make all those tactics and those pieces fit together? And that's the 365-day plan of each thing and how it's going to work together to build on the last, and the metrics of what to expect, et cetera. And so, for those listening, I think whether it's razor branding or it's refine or it's whatever the process is, it's having a process.
Yes.
Because if you don't have a process, you are not going to get results. No,
you're just going to shoot in the dark, and you're going to be throwing ads out there and seeing what works. And I think that's, I love this. This is my favorite part, because the process piece, you really don't realize it. And this is why we're experts in marketing, is you have to see that there are truly core pieces to being able to do marketing. I mean, going back again to the audience, you have to understand who's your audience, what your problems are, what your uniqueness is. And every business has it. And I actually align this with how we look at people versus businesses. It's kind of similar. Like, every person is unique. Every single one of us have a different identity with our fingerprint, right? So does every business. Every business is unique depending on who built it and how they built their core values and how they've been able to enter the market. And they all have a story. But there's those core building blocks that stay the same. There's an audience. You have to define the audience. There's problems. You have to define the problems. There's benefits and solutions. You have to define those. And so it's really, that's what I love about being able to go back to your point about process, is it's so fun to be able to learn about these businesses and their uniquenesses, but be able to have some kind of direction and be able to help people and serve people and understand that there is a formula and it can be done.
Oh, I agree completely. You know, what's interesting is as we're talking about it, it's always fascinating to me, the people who are just reactive, right? They go straight to tactics. They try to stay industry standard and do things industry wise. I was doing a professional development training last week for regional therapy organization. So it's all therapists in the room. So, you know, let's talk about how challenging that is, saying exactly the right word, you know, trying to be sensitive to everybody's differences. And I was explaining to them that when we talk about differentiate to dominate, it's strictly about understanding how to separate yourself from the pack. And I've got this slide that is like a store shelf. And it's, you know, it's whether it's the milk aisle or the shampoo aisle or the bank of TVs on the back wall at Best Buy, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that from a distance, it all looks the same. And I said, right now, y'all are looking at a picture of a bunch of milk, but open up Psychology Today and try to find a therapist in Lafayette. And they all started laughing. And they said, yeah, everybody looks and sounds the same. I was like,
yeah.
And so put yourself in the shoes of the person who's seeking help. And they are going to be put off by all of you. So how many, you know, EMDR certified are there in Lafayette? And there's like 750. I'm like, okay, so where's the separator? Why, you know, you are special. The way you do it, the experiences you've had that have brought you to here, the training that you've had, the way you practice. If anybody wants shrinking, you know, if you're jimmying somebody, all of those things make your way unique. And so your way, whether it's Refine or Razor Branding or what they're doing, that's the thing that's going to be the magnet that attracts or repels people to you. And so one of them messaged later and said, I feel like you just gave me permission to be special. I was like, no. I think you've always been special. You have permission to tell people what it is that makes you special, because that's the thing that they need or don't need. And if they don't need it, great. Let's find out now and let them go find the right person.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's funny because when I was thinking about what do I have actually to offer people, you know, this was right before I had created my process, and I actually had a framework and changed it up. And you have to like mold that based off of what you've experienced and the lessons you've learned and et cetera. But you first come to the drawing table and you're like, okay, what have I done?
Right.
How did it work for me?
Right.
How can this translate to other people? And you undervalue a lot of your experience and what's worked, what hasn't worked, right at first. But when you start writing it all down, and again, that's how I came to my framework and y'all have probably worked with so many businesses at this point, it gives you confidence. Like this is how we've been able to help other people. This is how we've been able to provide direction and watch them thrive.
Yes.
But at first you don't realize that, you know, and when you really have to outline it in a process, it forces you to figure out what that uniqueness is. And going back to those core building blocks, it's like you have to figure out your own personal brand, your own expertise, and then you have to be able to apply it, you know, and transpose that into a business if you have a business as well, if that makes sense.
No, 100%.
And with ours too, it kind of, and again, it was not overnight. It was 20 years of grind, figuring things out, and we're still tweaking it. I think this past year, our process has gotten even better because of new tools and new resources, things like that. But for a long time, it was, you know, we started really big with research and all this other stuff. We worked all the way down to the promise, and then we worked back out into deliveries. And there was a moment in almost everyone that we've done where, like, you see the faces in the room light up, and they're like, "Oh my God, you get us, you hear us, and you know, how did you know that?" And I'm like, you told us.
Yeah.
That's how we know. Like, there was no secret there. Like we did our process. We asked questions, and it was always there. We try to, you know, really pick good companies and businesses that have their act together, not just, you know, people that are sometimes, you know, sometimes you're lucky with that, sometimes you're not. We've been very lucky. But when it's a company that actually has their act together, and all of a sudden they just don't know how to talk about themselves, they don't know how to say the right thing, they don't know how to put it in the right framework, and all of a sudden it comes together, and they're like, oh my God, it's like this eureka moment. I'm like, you know what? Here's page 35. You said that. Here's this, you said that. Now we just took all that and we made it sound a little prettier, but it's not rocket science sometimes. Sometimes just due diligence and grind. You got to get in there and have something that helps you find the answers,
Yeah, I love that you just said that, because even in my process to figure out my process, one of the biggest things, and you just said it, is you don't know, you figure out who's not for you. I mean, when you know a company who needs help marketing, it's a lot of times because their messaging's all over the place and they're trying to target everybody. They do not have a clear audience. And sometimes somebody's just not the right fit for you from a customer standpoint. And when you really know, especially if anybody's on here and they're not sure about their marketing, you need help if you don't have the definition that you need of who your audience is and how to get there, or if your message is all over. If you cannot say who you're not for, that's a good sign, right? Because not every audience is the same. And I don't know if y'all experience the same thing in your process, but when I've sat down and I've talked through this of like, okay, let's talk through who your audience is. There's a few that come pretty good. Like they peg it right on the nail, right? But there's a lot more of justifying, oh, well, they could be a client this way, or we could serve them in this way. And it's like, no, your clothes, you're trying to do a women's boutique. like you're not, your secondary or your primary target is not the husbands who are trying to get their wives to come. Your primary target is the women of ages so-and-so to so-and-so, because they're interested in this type of fashion, right? But it's so easy. And I didn't have a client directly do that. That's just a general example, but I have heard clients try to do that. And then that justifying is where our expertise come in and say, no, not everybody is for you. You've got to truly dice this down, so.
Yeah. No, and that's really what it comes down to, is the strategic plan to use the tactics in a way to reach the right people. And when people don't know who the right people are for them, none of the rest of it's going to work, which is why you start with research. We start with focus. That's the necessary thing to get to the right place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are we serving here today?
Exactly. And who are we not?
Yes.
For sure. Danielle, this was awesome and perfect. And you were great. Thank you for your time and your talent and sharing it with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking me to be on the podcast. I love talking to fellow marketers, especially helping anybody that we can, right, to resonate with the struggles, same pain points. And I'm just honored that you could have me on. I appreciate the time.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much.